have a professional with us today, but renowned not only for her comedic brilliance, but also for her candid and empowering presence in the world of dating and relationships. We are so excited to welcome Erica Spera to the podcast today.
Thank you.
Podcasting is second nature to Erica, co-hosting both Finding Mr. Hyde podcast with her friend Allie Jackson and the engaging Shooters Gotta Shoot with Molly DeMiller.
Familiar, yes.
Familiar. I was wondering how to say it.
Welcome to the show, Erica.
Thank you.
And
what a sincere intro. That's so sweet. Thank you for having
my
me.
first one.
Well, I feel like there's so much we could talk about today, and we will. But first, I kind of want to touch on your comedy career.
Oh, yes.
I'm always really fascinated by comedians. So can you tell us a little bit of your journey into the kind of stand-up world?
Yeah. And this is always what everybody wants to know. Like, how do you start doing comedy?
And do you get stage fright or get over stage fright?
So it's a weird thing of, I always liked public speaking. You always have a little bit of the adrenaline fear of wanting it to go well. That's what your fear is I want it to be funny and people to laugh, not so much like actually speaking in front of people. But surprisingly, there's a lot of comedians that are very introverted and are terrified to speak publicly, and yet now they do it for a living. So it's
masochistic.
Exactly. It's a very, you want to talk shooters gotta shoot. I was like, people are so afraid to like approach people in public with dating. And I'm like, I have been getting rejected on the daily for years just from comedy. So like a no doesn't scare me, right? So that's the plus side of it. In terms of getting into it, that always changes. Like my class of comedy was you have to get on stage and do open mics. You do open mics. That's how you get better is you just do it. It's like if someone said, how do you become a surgeon? You just do surgery. That's how hard it is, and you just start there.
But now, prior to trying to do it professionally and for a career, did people say you were funny? Like growing up in school, were you like, oh, Erica's really funny?
Yeah, I always liked being funny, too.
Okay.
So that's part of it, is like you have that joy of making people laugh. And me, myself included, comedians, any regular person, all know people that are hilarious in real life, but put them in the format of stand-up and it's not funny.
Yeah.
And now the analogy for that especially is people that are very funny on TikTok, very funny on Instagram, and these like short little videos. And then they start doing stand-up and you go to their show and you're like, wow, it was really bad. It's like, yeah, it's not the same art form.
Yeah.
So being funny and being a stand-up like comedian, even though kind of synonymous, are like obviously completely different things as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of podcasts I love, and I think people are very funny on mic on a podcast, but solo on a stage is just very different. It's very hard. I'm biased. I think that's the hardest form of being funny because it's never contextual. It's all you.
Yeah.
It's just you up there painting a picture.
And when we went to the show the other day, when we left, I said, what comedians do is literally the most impressive thing I've ever seen. Whether you're an actor or an athlete, going up there, because if you tell a joke and it doesn't hit, it's very awkward. Very awkward.
A palpable sense of
And
awkwardness.
the way either you come back from that or roll with it, it's very impressive. And it's so unique to see how you could even get to the stage of saying, okay, I have this joke in my head and it's going to hit well with the audience. Because you have nothing to do except for practice it on an audience.
Exactly. So you're going to fail sometimes. And a point you brought up was, you go to a show and you'll see, especially in LA and New York, you'll see more known comedians, more famous comedians. And I've gone to those shows before I was doing comedy, and I'm like, wow, they actually were not that good. But you don't realize they're working on brand new stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you're the guinea pig. And now comedians are more likely to say, I'm working on some new shit, so don't be surprised it's not amazing, kind of thing. And it's a little bit of a cheat to be like, understand this is brand new. And people find that cool, though, as well. Even if you're like, wow, I don't find it funny, but this is very interesting to actually see this famous person like a Dave Chappelle fail.
Or just
where you're like, oh, the brilliance isn't there yet.
Yeah.
Or just watching the process of which is kind of like watching them work out jokes on stage. And if they prelude it with being like, hey, listen, we're trying to figure it out, then it makes it more interesting, at least as a viewer.
Yeah. Who did we see? We saw Whitney Cummings. We saw...
I know their faces, I just can't think of their bloody names.
Who's the short guy that he stutters a little bit?
Oh, Drew Lynch.
Drew Lynch.
I know him.
Whitney
Yeah.
Cummings.
Funny.
I knew him before he blew up, but yeah,
Really?
he's amazing. Yeah.
Nikki Glaser.
Nikki
So the
Glaser.
lineup was great. And I would say out of the five of them, one person, she was openly practicing and, wasn't hitting well. But the other four first were like, okay, are you guys a cool crowd? But I think they were serious just to see like what they could test.
Yeah.
And they went real raunchy and politically
Very
incorrect.
politically incorrect, but like so fucking
But
funny.
it was just hitting so well. And you could tell that they were happy and excited. Like, okay, this works, this works, this works. And like, okay, you guys are a great crowd and you're really engaging. So it was really, really amazing to experience it all.
Yeah, it's definitely an art because especially comedians that really push the line or toe right on the line so perfectly, you only learn that by crossing the line.
Yes, and
So this is where we often get in trouble as comedians is if someone's at that show that we're working on it and then they go and write a blog or something or they go to TikTok or whatever and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe the horrible things they said. It's like, first of all, it's a joke.
Right.
Like we're talking about it to be funny. So we might fail. And then you run to a blog and it's like, again, it's contextual. It's like, it's only one person's point of view. Not everyone was in the room. Because I've had stuff like I've said on a podcast and people are suddenly like, oh my God. And I'm like, all right. Like, if you just look to be offended, then you'll find something to be offended
if
by.
you're just looking to be offended. Well, it's like of that thing. So, like, if you're in the context of a crowd, so like sometimes when you go out and you're like doing material and you know personally it's fucking funny, it's killed at other places, or you're bringing it out, and then there's just a really particularly dull crowd. Does it ever deter you from wanting to like say like to kind of perform those jokes again, or do you just know innately that it's just a shit crowd?
Well, that's part of the skill of being a comic is being like, do these jokes work everywhere?
Yeah,
is one. But two, especially once you get big, say your demographic is like young women in their 20s that are single. Now you do a room that's 50-year-old people that are all married. Some of your jokes just might not hit because of references to dating. Like that's the most basic example of like, oh, if it's about modern dating, they haven't done that. They've been married for 15, 20 years, whatever. Similar to like, I've had friends that are only married like 3 years and they're like, oh my God, I don't even remember. And you're like, fuck you, you remember. You remember, you were just here. You're just like me. But there's an art to doing that and doing different groups of people, I think is actually more important because it'll make you see what translates. And a big thing is actually when people are big here and then they go abroad for the first time. It's very interesting to see, like, you won't even realize certain slang you use that the crowd just doesn't understand what the word was.
There's a show. There was a show on Netflix during the pandemic. I think it's called I Was Big in France or something. Have you seen that? So
is it? Oh my God, I think I know. Gad Aldema. Is that the comic?
Yeah. So he's a big comedian in Europe, and he comes to the U.S. and people are just like, "You're not funny," and he's like one of the biggest comedians in Europe.
See, he actually still does well, but it's so funny. There's a story. He was at the Comedy Cellar, goes on stage. 2 French people are in the audience because they get international people. Freaking out. And then the rest of the room is looking at them like, what the fuck? And he goes on stage, he just goes, yeah, tell him.
Honestly, I can attest to this. There's a couple of really, like, true, I mean, Jim Jeffries obviously is like a really big Australian comedian, but there's this fella named Carl Barron who is just like true blue, quintessential Australian, the most Australian accent ever. And he tried to come and do a show in America.
Tough.
Straight over people's house because it's like the references they were making were just so bloody Australian, and so I can understand that.
And I think I love when comedians put such a different comedic twist on obvious top talking points.
Yeah.
Whitney Cummings was talking about the trans community, and her jokes were so funny and amazing. Just the way that she's like, all straight men care about trans. Why do you care about trans? And then she was going into how women are so manipulative and play the long game with them.
Yep.
And she's like, all the trans women are not going to want to be trans once we get a part of them for 5 years. And it was just so funny.
It was very funny. She did
the
that
way
very, very
she
well.
went around and worked it.
But that concept is very unique.
It was so unique.
Because if you really break down comedy across the board, there is only so many topics we can talk about.
Right.
So that part is where comedians often get in their head, and I do. And lately I actually have been feeling like, damn, all I talk about on stage is like dating and relationships. And I need some other material. But my first 5 years of comedy, I was clean. So I didn't talk about dating and relationships at all. I talked about like my family and whatever I could from life. So now I'm at a point where I'm like, I kind of want to marry the skill I have of a better performer and writer and tackle topics that I actually think are somewhat boring.
Yeah.
But find the thing in it that's funny and unique to me. Like every comedian has a bit about like weddings or marriage. Like everyone doesn't, but they're all different. So it's the key is like finding the different thing. And that's why also these like TikTok comedians and Instagram comedians don't translate well because TikTok is all about copying the trends. And I only find a TikTok person impressive personally when they'll take a sound that say is viral and the text that they make is unique to them and different. But so often I see everybody literally copying the same exact jokes. And I'm bad at TikTok because I sit there with my comedian brain and go, I'm not supposed to copy. I'm supposed to create new.
Yeah.
So if I see the trending audio or whatever trend, if my idea, I've already seen 8 other people do it, I think that's like stealing.
Right.
Because the comedy world, if you did that, if you stole the premise, even though you had a different punchline, people will come after you as a stealer. And then your career is fucked.
Yeah. I think TikTok and Instagram, all these, the new generation of people coming in, even for modeling, you were telling me like you were a high fashion model. You had to really work your way in to get there. And now you have all these Instagram models who they just sit in their room and take selfies. And
can I say my favorite videos?
Please.
My favorite videos are showing the, stars of Hailey Bieber and fucking Kendall Jenner and whoever, right? Who model. And I'm not saying they're not beautiful enough to model.
They're pretty good.
But when they go video of them walking down the runway and then immediately a model walking down the runway who's actually been doing it for 10 years.
Who's been trained in it.
Drastic difference. And you're like, damn. And as someone who can't walk in heels regardless, I was like, I was impressed with Kendall Jenner. But then when I saw the real thing, I knew, there is a privilege here to just her fame.
And I would think the exact same thing about like a TikTok comedian versus a real comedian. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think that's that feeling of like an artist understanding like what's true and what's kind of like a replica. I think like any creative industry now, Jocelyn and I were just talking about it, so overly saturated.
Yes.
Purely because of this repeatable kind of blueprint that's down there. Something's funny. One subset of people on the internet think it's funny. Then 10 other subsets are going to think it's funny, you know what I mean? Because of kind of directing towards your audience.
It's also a level of professionalism. Like you take top athletes, top models, top comedians. You're in state. The thing that makes them so amazing is that you could fail in a second, and we're seeing, okay, are you great enough to not fail, or are you going to fall on your face in front of the whole world, whether you're walking down a runway, telling a joke, or shooting a shot to win the game? And I think that's what makes greatness and an area of expertise so unique, and that's why people like to watch and pay for it.
And what's similar in those industries, right, is like there's so many models I could name that I know by name, but those are the most like just famous ones. There's still so many working models that make more than enough money and don't have to deal with like that fame aspect. And in comedy, there's the same thing. There's all these comedians that can do like corporates, all this stuff, or just sell out their own shows and have 300,000 followers on Instagram, even 1 million. But still not everyone knows who they are. Where they're like, I work the markets that know me, I make my money, and like, I'm happy. Like, I don't chase the fame.
Well, it's not an aspect of their career that they're necessarily tied to, right? They're like, I want to be able to do comedy, I want to be able to make money and pay my bills, but like I don't necessarily need to be a certain level of fame.
Well, that's a part, I think, it depends how long you've been in the game. Where some people will always be fame chasers. They are truly famous, and it's never enough.
Especially in this
But I see those people, and it's kind of nice that I get to see those people and see that they're not happy. And I'm like, oh, you're just never going to be satisfied. Because they're complaining about stuff, and I'm just sitting there looking at them like, I would kill to have your career level. Right? Like, there's always someone that would kill to have your level. And some of the athletes, it's like, there's practice squad people that are making a great living, but they don't actually get on the field. But who cares?
Right.
Like, they took the skill they had, and it got them like farther than so many other people. The percentage is like, what, 1%?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I would say human population, 0.0001%.
You're right. But it is a game of like, do you accept the level you're at? Do you keep pushing to make something happen?
Yeah.
Because I'm a full-time comedian right now, but I am the least famous of like all of my peers. And I am happy though. And then I'm like, oh, does that mean I actually don't really want what they have? And it makes you kind of question
No, I think it's
what you
beautiful
have in your
to
level.
be happy pursuing the level.
It is, but it's such a hard life and such a grind that it's more like when you see your friend like sell out a theater for the first time, you're sitting there partly self-doubting if you go, will I ever actually be good enough to do this? And then the second question is not only good enough, but actually have fans. Because I could name 20, 50 comedians that I think should be selling out theaters and are that good. But some reason their social media stuff isn't hitting. They don't have the 1 million followers, even 100K followers. And it's so frustrating for me to see because I'm like, I think that comedian's 20 times better than I am. And you see them struggle and you're like, damn, like, what is the formula? And the sad truth is there's no direct formula.
Well, I think, I mean, I'm no expert, but I would say as long as people keep going with a combination of a little bit of luck.
Yeah, it is.
It's like eventually, like if you're good, you're good. So if you do it for 20 more years, you're just going to keep getting better and better. And then you'll get luck here and there. And if you get the right luck, then that's it. And I think a lot of people give up.
Yeah, or honestly, a lot of the people I've seen quit about 5 years in were some of the funniest ones because they know it. They're like, I'm talented, but nothing is coming from this. And they make a pivot. And to be honest, the whole comedy community is always like, good for you. Like, it's so hard because it's you've put so much time in that every year you kind of have that thought in the back of your head, like, but what if this is the year? Like, what if this is the year that you'll hit?
You have to.
You have to. So it's just an interesting combination really with anything that's like entrepreneurial is like,
oh yeah,
is this going to take off? Is it really going to hit? But I do think it's both good to have like reassessment points. Like I started and my reassessment point was going to be 10 years. It was going to be like, put this first over everything. Like I didn't take certain job promotions because it would be too many hours. Like I literally kept myself at a certain level with jobs to just make sure I could do comedy and put comedy first. And so I'm about to hit my 10 years and I was like, do this full speed, 10 years, as much as you can. Hit the 10 year and then say, okay, what is my life? What do I like? What do I not like? What do I want to change? Like, am I happy to do this, say another 5 or another whatever? But I think it's good and realistic to like have those check-ins and those checkpoints.
For sure.
Because it's, you at least want to feel like you have some control over it, even though you kind of don't.
But I would say
that makes sense.
The people who quit in the 5-year mark or the 3-year mark, they're probably thinking about it every day. They're probably thinking, shoot.
They usually go back to a few
Yeah,
mics
my life's not as good or as stable as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I wish it would have happened if I didn't take that 2-year gap off, or if I just kept going and kind of thinking, this is going to be the day, this is going to be the year. And I think everybody's wired very differently, but I'm wired, and I think most comedians and entrepreneurs are wired in a way where if you did it for 80 years and you died, it's like, well, I was really happy doing what I wanted. I didn't work for anybody else. I kind of lived out my passion, and maybe I wasn't good enough, but at least I lived a life.
Not even not good enough, but it's like obviously seeing there's so many different factors that go into being a successful comedian nowadays, and you're just talking so heavily on the social media aspect. Like how many comedians that are phenomenal at what they do and probably should be in the highest ranks, but they don't have a handle on how to promote themselves socially.
Yeah.
And that's such a massive currency nowadays within any creative realm or any realm of life in general that you're trying to sell something.
But I think certain things make you think, like, how much do I really, like, love the game? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I know comics that they've done corporates, cruise ships, like, all these gigs that pay the most money, colleges, but they're often the worst shows. So it's really a gamble, like, is the show actually good? Is it not? But that's why they pay so much money. It's because they're the hardest groups to perform on. And also, like, you're on a cruise ship in where the crew lives, and it's not glorious.
Just like a tiny bit.
You're not supposed to like mix with the ship. It's very like isolating and lonely. So when you have those gigs, that's when you really sit there and go, how much do I really love performing and doing this so much that like the mental cost or the physical cost, whatever it is like worth it.
At the same time. The amount of self-motivation, kind of a la an entrepreneur, that you would have to continuously push past like moments like that where you're like taking the paycheck from the cruise line because you know it's going to be good money and it's setting you up for X, Y, and Z versus like the love of going to like an actual club and doing like that's crazy.
Well, you have to be a little delusional to chase any dream. Crazy. You do. You have to have a little bit where you go, I could do it. Yeah. Or I'm as good as the people doing it. So
that blind faith in yourself, I think, is a really it's a very specific skill.
So speaking on love and transitioning a little bit, Allie and Finding Mr. Height, and then also Shooters Gotta Shoot. When did those start, and how did that transition go from kind of comedy to dating and building that podcast?
So comedy world, podcasts are kind of hand in hand, that it's another way you can maybe grow your audience or relate to your audience, and it's another form you can be funny, right? So Shooters Gotta Shoot, I started it, I think a little over 3 years now. Or it's about to be 4, I think, actually, this fall.
Oh, happy anniversary.
Which is exciting. Thank you so much. So my co-host Molly actually doesn't do the show anymore. And it's partly due to she wasn't a comedian and she hit the point with her career. Her career was really taking off. And it's basically she made so much money that it was like the amount of money this pod would have to make that then gets split into 2 people for it to be, make sense for her to quit her job. But interesting, the pod led her to working for a podcast company. Oh. And she loves it and she's killing it. And it's like, everything's meant for you, right? Your pet's going to work out. She's killing it. She's great. And there's no hard feelings. It just was like, I don't think it was worth her time anymore. So we both started that pod though. The premise of it was we had done our whole 20s. We were almost turning 30. And it was like, okay, we've actually never really tried to date, like actively put energy into dating.
What does that mean?
Like the effort of a dating app would be I'd download it. I would be on it for 3 weeks. Maybe go on one date, and then I'd be like, who cares? And it's also because you're young. So you're like, I got time, right? Time. And that's why I hate the advice that's like, just keep doing what you want to do. Do what you want to do, and the person will come. I'm like, I did that my whole 20s, and the person didn't come. So, like anything in life, I go, well, let me look at what I'm doing, and maybe there's something I could change, or maybe there's something I can prove. Like, I'm not opposed to like a criticism or a critique. So we read and tried methods from like every dating book, every like YouTube video we could find that was like, I'm a dating coach. This is what you should do, you know? And so some of the things I took from it were good, and some of the things that were like, that doesn't work for me. But really it was to challenge ourselves of like, we're successful in our careers and we work towards that, but why not work towards dating?
Being successful in dating as well, yeah.
At least trying, right? Because that's why I hate it'll come when you least expect it and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I think part of that's true with the luck part. Because even the people I know that met online, it still was luck. You know, it's like all my friends are on Hinge. You know, this percentage have met their partner through Hinge or whatever. The other percentage of us are still single. So you can't say Hinge works or Hinge doesn't work based on like data alone.
Exactly.
I think the main question for everybody is what they actually want. And I think most people in their 20s have no idea. And when they go out, they're like, I kind of want a boyfriend, or I kind of want a girlfriend, or I just want to have fun. I'm working on my career. And I think dating is so specific that you have to know what you actually want. Because if you actually want to be single, just ride it. And if something great comes along, then that's really amazing. But just
this is such a male lens right here, by the way. Thank you. I love how you're like, you got to decide if you want a relationship, and then you'll get one. I'm like, bitch,
I am.
Get the fuck out of my face.
He sometimes does come through like a very male, heavily male perspective.
I'm not shitting on it. It's 100%. This is how every man thinks, and that's how I thought. And it wasn't working.
Okay.
Where it was like, yeah, if I meet someone great and it works out and we date, cool. You know, I'll have fun in the meantime. Want to hook up with someone, cool.
But
like,
I only ask
no
because
man has ever been like, I am dating intentionally.
That's
right
true.
now.
That's true. But I would say, starting to do this, we get a lot of women saying, you know, can you help me find a boyfriend, this, that? And I would genuinely ask them, do you actually, are you ready in your life to have one person and like work with that person to like see where it goes? And
the
most of them
responses were just so fat.
Most of them,
well, just let me prelude, because a lot of women came and be like, I'm intentionally dating. I'm looking for a man. I'm looking for a partner. Like, this is what I want, and these are the steps I'm going about. And Joe would be like, well, but like, are you ready to make space in your life wholeheartedly for a person?
And their response was all the same. It was, well, I kind of want a guy who like lets me do my thing, who they just listed these things, and I was like, okay, so you're putting all these parameters, which is fine, but it seems like they're parameters that mean you actually are not fully ready to meet somebody, because they were just coming and saying like, I'm really ready to meet someone, and I was like, okay, that's a big step, but they weren't.
No, see, I wouldn't say they weren't. I think men, women, regardless of gender, regardless of who you date, it's when you meet someone you actually like and are excited about, you break your own standards and rules.
Every single fucking time.
That's why people go, what are your dating rules? I'm like, I only have maybe 3 fucking rules that I like actively stick to, right? And they're all rules that like rarely are even scenarios that come up like who pays for the first date, right? I got shit recently. I was like, the man pays. And I've had so many men being like, but why? But why? And I'm like, bro, do what you want. I don't care.
I'm just saying from my own personal
I was like, that's my opinion, and I wouldn't go on a second date with you. Like, that's
Which
it.
is fair.
And also, it's like people were attacking me, and I'm like, this has only happened to me maybe 4 times. But the trend I noticed was, if a man asks me to split the bill, guess what? He doesn't ask for a second date. So when men want to go date you, they often will just pay for the first date.
And it's your opinion and your life.
It's not even a conversation.
That's exactly right.
But any like dating person I've like interviewed or seen or whatnot, with whoever they end up with, there's some fucking rule they broke.
Oh yeah.
There's always a rule they broke, or a little like standard they wavered on.
Multitude of them, and it's like we talk about this quite often. It's like everybody goes into the dating scene when you're single with this preconceived notion of who you want and this list of things, right? But the reality of who you actually end up with, like, love you to death, but like there are a couple of things about him that I'd never in a million years would have imagined myself with. You know what I mean? In the most beautiful way. Like, he watches sports all weekend.
Yeah, that is a complaint most women say.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're like, sports winners just always on.
I've never knew that sports were on that much.
And then every man's like, this Bravo TV's always on. I didn't know there were so many groups of housewives that we had to keep up with.
crime.
But you know what I mean. Something true crime.
True crime is all day on the phone. True crime.
But it's just, I think it's things like that, and that's when people go into the dating scene thinking to themselves that they're going to tick off every single one of those check boxes. It just leads to failure. It's never ever going to end up that way.
Most matchmakers and stuff will say that actually do set up people for a living will be like, okay, give me your 3 deal breakers. Like your absolute 3 deal breakers. And it's usually like, do you want children?
Yeah.
If you're very religious and want someone religious or same religion or same race, right? That's usually number 2. And then the third is like, dealer's choice. So it's like one person, I'm forgetting who it was. I feel like it was Matchmaker Maria, because I like her stuff a lot.
Oh, she's great.
I feel like this is what she said.
Friend of the app.
Yeah, she's great. She said, it's like, here's your must-haves, and let's say 5. Let's say you can do 5. And then would like to haves. is like the other 10 things.
I like that.
But it makes you be like, okay, what really is important? However, this list thing is still something I feel like men never fucking do or get pushed to do.
Did you have a list?
No. So this.
Yeah.
So,
See, no.
So wait. So no. I'll say
Well,
this.
ironically,
Point
Steve
made.
Two
did.
things. Yeah. Steve's an anomaly.
One for Erica, everybody.
Well, I'm saying like your friends don't sit down and go, buddy, you gotta, you know, you gotta settle a little bit, you know? Don't put anything that has to do with physical attraction in the must-haves. That's not what matters, you know?
I would say, yeah, a guy's perspective is totally different, and I can never speak to a woman's point of view. And I guess when a guy meets someone who makes him feel a different way, it scares him, but then it makes him think, okay, eventually I'm going to need to get married. Eventually I want to have kids. This is amazing. Do I pursue or do I not? And men think they have physical types. They really do. When I first met her,
I think most people do a little bit.
Yeah.
well, like growing up in Staten Island in New York, you're around shorter,
Short brunettes with big boobs.
Yeah.
and I guess
And loud.
Very loud.
And I guess that's just innately what you're around, so you're attracted to it. And she was the opposite. She was tall, blonde, very skinny, and I was
No boobs.
and it didn't matter.
I'm very loud though, so that kind of ticks up for something. But you're right.
But I did have checklist things that, as you get older, they don't matter. And I would say now, if I was giving anyone advice, like a guy, I would say, if you're attracted to somebody, just general attraction, they're really nice to you, and you have a good time with them, you should pursue that until something drastically changes, to where you're like, you know what, it's not for me.
Yeah, but this is the difference.
The difference between men and women. You look good. You're nice. We have a good time. And that's all it is for men. Whereas women is like this 20-page fucking thing.
No.
Like
I'd say there's an immediate
nuance.
3. I'd say there's immediate 3.
Immediate 3.
The nice is up there.
100%,
Right?
100%.
Good job is what we swap with attractive.
Okay.
When you
that's
talk to
fair.
your female friends.
It is true.
That's
Okay.
the number one thing. Because
I mean,
everybody.
attractiveness level is there, but like job definitely outweighs attractiveness level.
Yeah. Like, it's so interesting of getting set up by people. I'm very, I've been actively now telling people, like, hey, if you know anyone, I am happy to go on a date with them. And they ask me, what are your requirements? And I'm like, that you think they are great. That you would be very happy to find out I end up with them. That's it. That is all I am saying. Because I hate people who come to me and they go, well, I don't know any tall guys. I go, so? Like, height's not a deal breaker for me. But I'm trying to be more open-minded because I agree of like, at the end of the day, and Matchmaker Maria says this, like, if I'm pregnant and I'll have to have an emergency C-section like she did, she's like, do you think I was sitting there going, oh, thank God my husband's 6'5"?
You know,
Like,
it's
it's
so
the
funny
last
you say
thing
that.
you fucking
It's
think
so
about.
true.
It's so funny you say that.
You
But
know?
like, even to this day, and this might be out of
Controversial?
maybe, but there's a lot of beautiful people in the world, right?
Yeah, there is.
And just as human beings, we think, and especially in LA, you see a lot of beautiful people. Every day, I think when I have kids, when I'm sick, the way I get treated, how amazing Hannah is, that stops my thought immediately into like, if there's a pretty girl walking down the street, I'm like, yes, there's a very beautiful woman walking down the street. But if I was to even inappropriately entertain that for a second, I could lose literally a perfect life.
Yeah.
And
The
it
thing
like
you know
halts
that's
you right
good
away.
and works
yeah,
with
like
it.
she's going to be the most amazing mother, the most amazing wife, and she's still the most beautiful person. So
Hype
it's like,
Hunter update? Thanks, guys.
it's just like,
What a fun third wheeling pod.
I think that, that's just what's important
Right.
to me.
But what's interesting is anytime I've had a guy set me up or mention a friend and I've done the group scenario, you meet them and afterwards they're like, so what do you think of so-and-so? And I'll be honest and I'll say, you know, to be honest, like he's not really my type. I'm not initially super attracted to him. I said, but I really like talking to him. And they go, oh, okay. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? No, I'll go out with him. They go, you said you weren't attracted to him. I said, I will still go on a date with him. And they are so confused. They're like, but why?
But you don't find
But is there
But
an
why?
emotional attraction or an intellectual
I liked
attraction?
talking to him. But this is the difference between men and women is women are raised and told to be lenient on the attractive and that it can grow.
Yes.
Okay.
And men are very much, it's like, look, if he's not attracted to you first date, like, that's it. Like,
He's asking you
don't...
to split the bill.
Like, to set up with a woman, you'd be like, show me a picture. Like, that really would
That's
be
true, yeah,
all
yeah.
you'd want to know to say yes to the
But
date.
I would say for a second date, there would have to be a deep intellectual attraction, like deep. When our first date, it was we were so aligned intellectually, and like our conversations were so in depth. I was like, okay, I could talk to her all day,
Yeah.
every day.
You should be excited for the second date on
Yeah.
multiple levels.
And if it was just looks, I was never like that, where it's like, okay, this woman's so beautiful and there's nothing here, but because she's so beautiful, let me go on a second date. Because
Whoa. Pause. You've
What?
never gone on a second date with a girl that you didn't feel such deep connection emotionally with first date.
No. But I mean, I'm sure
bullshit.
I have.
I think it's bullshit. We have all dated people that were fucking beautiful.
I'm just going to do this right
fucking
here.
beautiful and so attractive.
Because even I've done that. You know what I mean? I'm not
But
saying
was
even
it-
I've
but-
done that, but like
Thank you.
I've definitely done that. Where it's
Everyone
like,
has.
It's like a beautiful man. Like something
Yes.
visually stunning to look at, right? Not
Yeah,
the
not
sharpest
you.
tool in the shed. Not the
kidding.
sharpest fucking tool in the
kidding.
shed. But yes, hell yeah, I've gone a couple of dates because
Bruh.
it was gorgeous to look
Yeah,
at.
maybe like to sleep with them, and it was
No,
like kind
not
of
even.
known.
Like,
Not
go
even.
out. You hang out with them multiple dates. Like
Just
you
to
just
look at
say,
them.
I've never gone on a second date with someone who I really didn't feel like, was
Who
really
didn't
there, but was
stimulate
so
you
hot.
deeply.
Bullshit. We've all done it, and I think that's a lesson you need to learn in your 20s. Because I've had that walking down the street with a 6'6" dude who's fucking fine as hell, and just being like, "Look what I got, huh? Look what I
Literally,
caught."
be like,
That was my version of like the man holding the fish. I was like, look at this. And it's like the whole time I knew I'm not marrying this guy. Like, I really liked him. We had a fun time together. I wouldn't say there was like nothing there, but like, how
Okay,
nice was
maybe
it?
you're
And cool.
thinking as me in my 30s and not in
You
my
know,
20s.
like,
yes, I was just saying, you're probably not thinking of the
Yeah.
younger version of yourself.
But there's been a handful of guys I'm like, I've bagged some fucking hotties, but like, there wasn't
Do you think
really
that
something
guys-
there. There wasn't real love. What? He was just hot.
Do guys treat you being funny the way that women treat men being funny?
Like they're more attracted to them?
Yeah, like obviously, if a guy's funny, I feel like a woman's really attracted to that.
It's pretty high on a lot of female checklists is being funny.
Yeah, some girl I just talked to recently said something of like one of her deal breakers is a guy who isn't funny, and I was like, girl, come on.
Funny is so
There's not many of
subjective.
us. I am not funny at all.
I disagree. You're goofy funny. So.
I'm like I'm dad joke
yeah,
funny.
you're dead.
So men and women, when surveyed, both say like sense of humor is in their top like 5 things they want in a person, right? And when women say it, they mean a man who makes them laugh. And when men say it, they mean a woman who laughs at their jokes. I think both have the definition wrong. Sense of humor, I think, is you laugh at the same stuff.
Okay.
Like, I should be laughing with you a lot. Like, I would hate to watch a movie or something like that. And not saying this will never happen with who I end up with. But, like, how great is it to, like, put a movie on and both be laughing?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that, to me, is having same sense of humor. Where, like, we find the
thought
same
about it.
shit funny.
Never thought about
like,
it that way. That's so
80%
true.
of the time.
I could see men doing that. Just
You
being
know?
like, I just want you to laugh at my jokes.
I want you to think I'm funny.
Right. But, like, a good date is improv. It's not stand-up. It's not I make you laugh or you make me laugh. It's we are laughing together and piggybacking off each other the way you do with your friends.
Yeah.
Like I don't go to dinner with my friends and go, "Wow, they're laughing at me. I'm killing this. I'm killing this hang.
killed right now.
You know, this friendship. I got this friendship in the bag. You know, I wonder if she'll come over. You know, or whatever."
God, I'm gonna have extra abs from laughing at. What have you ever dated a comedian?
I have, yeah.
How did that experience go?
It ultimately didn't work out, but it's interesting. I've seen it work out a lot,
Yeah.
and I've seen it completely blow up a lot because I think it's very easy that it will feel competitive, not in the sense of laughing together. That's usually the part that is great. It's career wise.
I was about to say there must be because it's like there's no real like a female comedy lane and a male comedy lane. It kind of intersects with each other, correct? Like there's no
It's
to a certain extent.
It's basically like you both have to have no ego, and it's very hard in comedy in general for like one person, even your friend, to like get an accomplishment, and you don't at all feel this "why not me" feeling. But sometimes with men and women, you'd think it'd be easier because you could almost lie to yourself and be like, "Oh, they weren't looking for another woman, so that's why he got it," or "They were looking for women, that's why she got it." But if you say those things out loud, it also like tears down the other person. Like, well, you only got that over me because of
your
this,
gender. Yeah.
right? So, I mean, this might be a controversial thing, but it's very, very rare that I see comedy couples work out where the woman is more successful in comedy. It's very, very rare. I think men are a lot more sensitive to that.
Now, do you believe that it's because the male ego is a little touch
Well, I
perhaps
think-
more fragile than the female?
Yes, and also because men are kind of raised, women want a funny guy. So,
one right here.
and I'm not saying there aren't any couples that the woman is more successful and the guy is totally fine with it. Like, I think it's tough for all of them when one is being more successful than the
Yes.
other. But in terms of seeing them work out of who gets married, I really can't name any except like one that it worked. So I kept having comedian relationships fail. And then I was looking around me being like, yeah, this is going to be hard. But I think it's more hard from the like you're both people that are in front of the camera, and I think those relationships work with one person's in front of the camera person, one person's behind the camera person. So like a comedian with a writer is kind of this perfect like mesh where it's like, the writer's writing the show and you're like the quote in the show.
Yeah.
And you're both doing what you love and you're both killing it. And there's like not this desire, because so many female comedians I know, and this has happened to me, go on dates with people and then immediately they're like, I always thought about doing stand-up.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, that's fucking insulting that you said that to me. But I actually just say, then do it. That's all I say. I'm like, well, then do it.
Don't fucking speak about
I
it.
go, do it. And they're like, yeah, is it easy? I go, so easy. Do it. But, but it's this thing, I'm like, you fucking won't, that? You liar. You're 36 and you never did it. Like, do it.
How many times have you heard that? Like,
all the time.
Oh my God.
All the time.
That must be I never really thought about like the level of insulting that must be. It'd be like, oh really? You think you can do what the fuck I've done for the last 10 years? Like, and cultivated that shit? Like,
yeah.
It's not you just get up there and start being funny.
Well, it's even worse. They go, people always told me I should model. Okay.
I've heard people say that
well, try to do it then.
Yeah,
like,
I think
give her a go.
All unsolicited advice or feedback, like especially with the app, people are like, what you should do? You should do this with the app. And I'm like, all right, like, did you do that with your app? And they're like, well, I never made an app. I'm like, okay,
it's like,
thanks.
Oh, I had an idea for a dating app once. It's like, okay, cool. Did you?
Or like, that? Oh, your app's good, but it could be, you could do this with it. And I'm just like, yeah.
See,
like,
that I don't hate.
Well,
because it's like, hey, here's a suggestion.
But if I ask.
Oh, yeah, if you don't
like,
ask.
Like right now, if I was like, hey, nice to see you, Erica, and you're like, this is what you should do with your app, I'd be like, well, what kind of context is that? Like, if you said, hey, I was using the app and like there's this feature I really think would be great. Like, what do you think about it? I'd be like, oh, that's amazing. Like, thank you for the feedback. But I feel like a lot of people are just like, yeah, it's cool, but it could be better this way. And it's like, I didn't even ask.
Yeah, exactly. Can we play a hypothetical with dating apps for a second? I think this might be perfect for both of you and you running an app.
I was just about to ask you about dating apps, so let's
go.
Oh. No, perfect. No, go.
Okay. Someone asked me this once. I thought it was a very fun question of, if you could make something mandatory on an app that people had to have on their profile, that was an honest answer about something, or I don't know, some change to the dating app profile, mandatory, it's there. What would you add to it? But this, we can be in fantasy world.
If you had to have something mandatory.
So one thing I said I was like, I think a lot of women would like if there was somewhat of an Uber rating system that women that went on dates with you could just give you a ranking.
So a lot of people,
if they didn't want to date you, it's like, oh, he was so nice. Like,
well,
just
okay, let me dissect that because no. Let me tell you why.
You should do that on your app.
Let me tell you why it won't work. It sounds good in theory, but dating is so hot and cold that you could have a great date with somebody and take something too personal that's not an indictment on that person, and you could change their rating.
No, see, this is male lens right here.
But also, maybe we could switch it around where, like, and maybe this is a little bit like too soft, but like you only have positive things on there in terms of the.
Okay, so there's a dating app. I like plugging other dating apps. There's this dating app called Hula, and how Hula works is women endorse their male friends.
Oh, I've heard of this. This is new.
So that's kind of an angle. But
see, I think the rating makes both parties. It's like the way you get into an Uber. They are going to rate me after this. I'm going to rate them after this. And I think it just makes people be a little bit more on their best behavior.
Okay.
So, and you can make it like she said, like categories you have to press.
Yeah.
Like they were very kind. That, like, not arbitrary stuff. Like he said he was going to call me and then he didn't.
Yeah.
Well, things like purposely tear people down.
So since
right, exactly. Give options like, oh wow, they selected out of these 10 things, he got 8 out of 10.
Okay, so since this is fantasy land, I would say,
like, if a girl was flaky, wouldn't you want to be able to check an app and go flaky? Canceled the date 3 times.
Yeah. With that being said, I would say I would want to see, and again, this is fantasy.
It's hypothetical.
I would want to see their like a job resume. I would want to see their dating resume. How long they've been with somebody, how many like individual dates they had in between relationships, and kind of like a history.
I mean, that data I don't think any person has.
What? No, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's Fantasyland.
Oh, just have you had a serious relationship? It seems like that's
like
what
you'd have to honestly fill in. Okay, from age 21 to age 35, this is my dating history.
Okay,
and how long I was dating this guy, how many dates I went on, why this date didn't work, and like a thorough resume.
Okay, because
now you're fully aware of this person's whole history.
Okay, the version of female for that is I want a list of how many friends he has.
Okay.
A lot of men don't have friends, and it's awful.
Why?
I want to be like, how if you had to put together a groomsmen party, of a maximum number of people. What's your max?
No acquaintances.
max?
How
Let me
many
see.
real true friends?
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
brothers count?
No.
No.
Okay,
No,
so I
not
got,
siblings.
I was about to say.
I got Ray.
But I'm like, it's interesting that you put so much weight of like, has there been a boyfriend?
no, I'm
before?
saying,
You know?
time out. That was
because my resume would be blank on the fucking
that
thing.
was not, time
And
out.
I'd be like, well, here's my job resume and accomplishments.
No,
this
no,
is
no,
why
no.
I haven't had a
For
boyfriend.
context, this was not a man towards a woman. And also,
No, it's in general.
it was also just to see the history. I think having no history is fine.
See, but what you said implies no history is not fine. Because I want to see the history.
No, I'm saying if you're 35 and your resume from 2035 is like never had a relationship and these are all your dates, it's like, okay, I know that going to this, there's a chance it's not going to go somewhere because this person probably doesn't want it to go somewhere.
See, that's bullshit. That's what
Why?
you're inferring.
Why?
Because I haven't had a man actually call me his girlfriend. Even the men I was dating a few months that I thought that's where it's
But
going.
that counts. That's dating.
Listen
But
to the point.
you're putting it on me when the
But you
commitment.
can do the same thing to me.
No. See, I wouldn't, because
Okay.
I don't think that matters. Relationship resume, because the commitment wasn't on me. It's not that I was afraid of commitment. It's that these men didn't want to commit to
Okay.
me. So
Yeah,
I'm
so
like,
it's
does
through
that
no
make the
fault of their
resume
own.
that like I dated one guy and didn't fuck anybody else for 3 months? Like, does that is like situationship ish relationship
I just feel like
lowercase r?
there's a lot of
You
room
know?
within this hypothetical realm.
What's
where-
yours?
Where,
You're
Hold on.
playing the good cop over there.
Wait, hold on. We're both women.
we are both women.
She's on my side.
That's
Sorry.
exactly right.
I know you're
This
married.
is the change up of the
this is
podcast with
2 for
Steve
1
Moore,
right now.
you and me, baby.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm trying to think of one that's better than the rating system, but it's not, because that I think is such a fascinating way of going
No.
about it. And let me finish my thought. It kind of, in a way, it ties into what you were saying, right? So it's like you want this dating history, and this rating system is basically like a dating history, and they're being like, okay, well, gone out on a couple of dates. Let's use Erica for an example, right? Fucking loved Erica. She was amazing. I just wasn't willing to commit, blah, blah, X, Y, and Z. And now you've got this rating, be like, oh.
You're playing it, both of you, in like the women are going to be so unbiased and give like really nice feedback. That's you two. You're going to have all these
But like I said,
women
you
who
structure
are going to
it-
rate men.
But it's like the way you rate an Uber. It
Yeah,
doesn't
you
give you, like, if you want to say negative, you have to submit a paragraph.
Yeah.
So there's a committee that gets to go, is this paragraph
That's fine.
fair
Okay.
to knock them down a peg?
Because
Yeah.
what if a guy on his profile has 6 foot, but he's 5'10", and it's a 2-inch noticeable difference, and she's like 1 star. He was 2 inches off.
Well, then, like,
No,
like you can't do that in this
Okay,
hypothetical
that's a
rating system.
category.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a
He was the
category.
height he says he was.
Yeah.
Okay.
I either click yes or no.
Yes or no, and that's it.
That's
you know
one
what
of the
I mean?
10.
And then at least all of those women going forth being like, oh, he's lying about his.
See?
lying about his
But
height.
I would even make it, did he lie about anything on his profile? So I wouldn't even make it about height. Because people lie about age, many
Okay,
other things. They
that's
lie
fair.
about where they live. I've had that. I've been duped by that. I live in the city. And then you go, meet them. They go, I live in Jersey. You're like, no, you fucking don't. You know? Like that, but it's a lie.
It's true.
You know what I mean? So anything you're lying about on your profile, I think is a red flag.
Yeah, I agree.
But see, during this brainstorm session, we've made
We've come
it
to a
work.
general consensus.
We've made it work.
Honestly, I'm here to fucking petition the rating system in a way that's cultivated in a way that you can't be like unnecessarily vicious. You know what I mean?
No, I
Because
think
there's too much
vetting
of
it
that shit
through an
already.
approval process of like whoever runs the approval process.
And let's say this. Your rating only gets put on your profile after you've had
10 ratings.
dates from the app or something like that, where it's like there's an actual real pool
Okay,
here
you know
to
what?
get a better
You know what,
average.
Erica?
See, you don't just
He's
shoot
coming
down
around.
ideas.
Let me
He's
just
coming
tell you
around to
something.
it.
You work with them.
I feel very humbled talking to 2 very intelligent women. I feel a little bit on the hot seat. So, but
Because your resume thing, this is what it's infringing on, this question, which if someone has not been in a serious relationship by a certain age, is that a red flag?
depends on the guy.
But I think you lean on the side of yes, which is okay to lean that way. But I guess someone like me who doesn't
If I
believe it
knew
is.
her,
Wait a
if
second.
I knew your dating history resume before I met you, I would never went on a date
No, I
with
never
you.
would have.
See? So your idea is trash.
I find the ironic thing about this is the fact that you never had a serious relationship in
Yeah.
your 20s
I had one.
without me.
I
Before
had
me.
one. I had one.
Yeah, you had one, but that was
See?
in your very, very early baby 20s. You know what I mean? So you didn't really have like if I had looked at your history, truth be told, if I had that resume, like that little friggin' resume, and I'd been like, this man hasn't had a serious relationship in 8 years. I'm looking for marriage. I'm looking for all these things. I probably would have been like,
Yep.
All right, you guys both
know
made your point
about
that your
that.
picture is way better than mine.
No, but here's where this is interesting, right? This plays on female male lens a little bit with this, right? So when it comes to dating, the advantage that men have, let me start. when it comes to dating, the advantage that women have is we can have sex whenever we want.
A huge
Okay,
advantage.
we can get laid whenever the fuck we want. I
Literally.
can go to a Dwayne Reed, a CVS.
Be like,
I can go
"Oi."
to a library and find some dick. Okay, I can find a dick wherever, right? And that's the part that men always look at women and go, "Oh, what do you mean you haven't gotten laid in a few months? You can go out tonight and get laid, right?" That's the
I like
advantage.
your man voice.
That's
I was gonna say that earlier, the man voice, and it was implying my voice before. I was like, well, all right.
Pretty good.
So that's our advantage, right? We know that, okay? The male advantage is you can get into a relationship whenever you want.
That's not true.
There will always be some woman so happy to be in a relationship with you because women want relationships, men want sex.
Yep.
So that's where the power is shifted. So that's why we think your resume thing is trash for women, okay? It's not trash for men, which is the point she made. You were a red flag if we saw your resume. We're like, he hasn't committed, and the commitment part is typically up to you guys.
And I'm still thinking about my bridal party here.
He's like, can I call my
I have
friend's
friends?
dad? Does my friend's dad count? Can I count him as a friend?
Honestly, I wouldn't be
We
surprised. if
golf
put them on there.
sometimes. You know?
All right, so but speaking of dating apps, like, are you on dating apps?
I am, yeah.
Which ones do you mind saying?
I'm like actively on. I technically have a profile on Hinge, Bumble, and Tinder, and I usually don't do like a bunch at one time.
You know,
But I
all three at
currently
the
have.
same time.
Well, to be honest, I thought I moved to LA, right? And when you're like move to a new location, your shit pops off, right? I'm brand new. I'm getting shown to everybody. Oh, look at me. Look at my Italian ass in LA. What? You've never seen me before, you know? And my Hinge was dead. And I even paid for the Hinge X, which was then just depressing. Because Hinge X is like, we're going to make sure more people see you. And when you send a like, you're at the top. And I'm like, well, LA does not like me.
You know what Hinge does, which I get a lot of that feedback, is their algorithm really, it's very humbling for people because it's like, it shows you people who they think that you would like. And it's like a big bucket of people who like fit in your bucket. And a lot of people are just like, geez, I did not realize that I fit in this bucket. And they don't like it, which rightfully so. It's like, why are you bucketing me into this pool of people who you assume are like me?
It's actually based on a math theorem, and I forget the name of the theorem. But basically, if you're new to an app, right, it indirectly gives everybody like a number on a scale of 1 to 10. So you're new to the app, you're at neutral, and it'll show you to everybody. So if someone who's a 10 ranks you attractive, your number shoots up. If a number 10 says no to you, it's like, well, it doesn't knock you down that much. Now, if someone who's like a 4 says no to you, you get knocked down real
And
low.
now this person being a 4 is like a staggered approach because they've had the same thing.
They've like
done.
been through it already.
Okay.
So it's like when you're fresh. So basically like those first couple of days you're on an app, there is somewhat a ranking they give you. And then
All
you
through
are
math,
correct
though.
that it will show you now people it almost thinks are in your league.
Okay.
Right? But at the same time, if you've done what I've been doing where I've gotten sick of them, so I don't open them for like weeks, the minute I open them, I see the most fucking attractive hot dudes that are my type because the app knows what it's doing. It's like, no, we have hot people. Come back.
Don't leave.
Yeah.
Come back. Isn't this so fun to see all these hot people? You know, like what? And then all of a sudden after like 10 swipes, I'm like, and we're back. And we're back to what Hinge thinks I should get, you know?
All right, so out of all of those 3 dating apps, which one's your favorite? And then what are your like kind of common frustrations with a lot of the dating apps in the same
Okay.
time?
I mean, I think my number one frustration across the board is laziness on the apps. And I don't judge that hard if you open the question with like a pretty simple question. Because I think most people are like, I'm messaging 14 people. I only hear back from 3 anyway. So we've all gotten a little lazy on that. Because I live my life by like, okay, someone might ask a boring question, but do I also give a boring answer?
Yeah.
Like 2 people recently were like, hey, Erica, how are you?
Oh, so boring.
Okay, very boring,
So
right?
boring.
But I'm like, you're a comedian. You can fucking do this, right? Show some sense of humor here. And because we had the hurricane, and I'll put that in quotes because it was a joke to people from the East Coast like
Yes.
It
myself.
was literally like a
Fucking joke. It's rain. I just replied, I go, well, I said, I'm one of the few survivors of the hurricane, so I'm doing pretty great, right? I made it fun. And then I'm like, how's your week been so far? Do anything fun.
They
So
said
I'll
good.
try to spice it a little bit. And then if I get back like, yeah, it's been good. I'm like, come on, man. Like, I'm
Yeah,
trying.
little
I'm
fucking
actively
something.
trying. So I
Yeah.
feel like laziness with conversation a little bit. But more so laziness with like Bumble, I think I see it the most, where I feel like men are almost punishing women like, see how hard it is to start a conversation? And I'm like, you're punishing me for some women that talk to you that way. I'm not talking to you that way. So I have a rule kind of where I'm like, I'll ask 2 questions. And if you don't like throw something back to me, or give me anything to work with, I just will stop.
Very fair.
I feel like you're kind of the same in that regard.
Oh, well, I'm not really a big red flag, green flag kind of person, but
it's just frustrating.
One thing that I would always say is if I was on a date with somebody, I always ask questions to like make that person, even if I'm not into them, just like, this is our time together. Let me just make you feel like I care. And if I don't expect the same amount of questions back because I do want to like court the women with questions. But if they don't show any interest in me, I'm just like, all right, like I can't ask you 20 questions and just interview you. Like at least let's have some dialogue here.
Something, right? So and even with the app, then making like the plans for the date is probably my other biggest peeve. And I have a friend recently that sent me a screenshot of a conversation with someone who is from LA, by the way, from LA. So he's been around, and she's lived here like 7 years. And it's like, okay, so where do you think, you want to go? And she's like, wherever. She's like, I live in this neighborhood. Like, what neighborhood do you live in? This. Okay, maybe something in the middle. He's like, do you know any places? And it's like, bro, have you even tried? And she even said, how about you find 3 and I'll pick from the 3.
That's fair.
And he was like, God, you're putting so much pressure on me. It's like, this is not pressure.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Like, it's shit like that. It's like, do you want to go out or do you not want to go out? And I feel like men and women are both guilty of that, where it's like, we're all being a little lazy and stubborn. And it's
100%.
like,
but those two
offer
things
something.
is when I was in New York, kind of building the concept of Fresh Eyes on Me, I was always asking New York women, what are your pet peeves about dating apps? And they said those two things. And that's why the two features that I think are most different are, I don't even allow people to be pen pals. And I think that's good. It puts a lot of pressure and you have to be really confident and like spontaneous to do it. But it kind of eliminates all that pressure to be like, okay, I don't have to really think of too many things to say. And the other thing was the main feedback I got was the plan. They were like, why can a guy not just say, hey, meet me here? And that's it. That's all I
especially for
need.
a drink, yeah.
Yeah, and I think
You don't need a reservation. We can just walk in. And New York is so, this bar's crowded. Walk 5 feet.
Exactly.
Another bar.
Yeah,
very,
and
very easy.
I think the chat box, it's not for everybody, but I think just people who are looking for a certain thing and are comfortable enough to just be like, hey, I'm just gonna have a drink with you. Like, who cares? I think it just helps alleviate some of that pressure.
Well, I think that one of the things that I love about like First Time to Me so much is the planning the date aspect, because every person I've ever talked to, man or woman, men are sitting there saying it's too much pressure. Women are like, why the fuck can't you just pick a place for us to go for
it's
for
the
a
easiest
drink?
thing.
It's so simple, and to women it seems so simple. To men it feels like they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves, especially if they're dating, like they're actively dating in the dating scene, so they're going out and they might have to be doing this a couple of times a week. But having that element already set up for you, I think, is really fantastic, because then it takes away all of that pressure, takes away all that frustration.
And I've tried to have like a personal swiping filter sometimes when I get tired of apps, where I go, swipe right, say yes. If this person asked you on a date immediately, would I go?
Intentional dating.
You know what I mean?
Think.
And that also is making me a little more superficial. I'm not going to lie.
You should be.
Right? But the truth is, when I'm giving you a chance for personality, I want to see some personality first, right? Because I've also dated that way, where I said, accept majority of likes that come your way and see what comes your way.
Yeah.
Like, be in your feminine energy for a week and see what comes through, right?
And I think as humans, we kind of had to quickly adapt to dating apps because they came in so hot and heavy that I think the stat is if you go 20 minutes, more than 20 minutes a day on a dating app, after the 20-minute mark, you're just all over the place and there's no real direction. So good luck. But if you spend 20 minutes intentionally liking people who you actually would go on a date with, dating apps could be beautiful. Yeah. But I think with Instagram and social media, we treat dating apps the same way. It's like, I'm bored. Let me just swipe a little bit and see what happens. And then you end up matching with somebody. And then one person's like, oh, fuck, I really didn't want to match with that person. You don't answer. And it's like, well, why the fuck did you match with me?
Right.
That's how I used to use like dating apps. I'm not going to lie.
That is how most men do. They swipe and filter later, where they look at the details later and they'll be like, oh, damn, this girl like is a Republican and like, wants like never showers or whatever she writes on her profile. And it's like I matched with her, but I wasn't reading. I was just like, let me do this quick.
Well, that's why Hinge, I'm a really big fan of Hinge in the sense that
we met on Hinge.
Oh, nice.
The app really does a good job of making you fill out as much as possible before you can even get a profile. And I think that if you're intentionally dating, you have so much more information than a Bumble or a Tinder, and you know more of what you're getting into. And that's why I think they have such good success rates.
So then you can argue Bumble and Tinder is who the person really is. Because when you're on multiple apps, you'll see their Hinge profile, which is like, oh, this is date me. And then you see Bumble and you're like, oh, this is what you really want. Because it didn't make you do that stuff. So it's like very telling if their Bumble or Tinder or whatever does not align with the app that makes you answer questions.
True.
because you're like, oh,
It's so fascinating. I never
okay.
thought about that before. Because like back in the days of dating, you would see multiple people across multiple platforms, and then you can kind of sense like what.
I used Bumble and Hinge. I
you know what? I'm sorry. Before I forget, there's a new Tinder feature that you actually might be interested in, and I know you just said people hate when you do this.
No.
But I found it.
No, you got to pass.
I fucking know. But anyway, they have a filter now because Tinder's trying to get away from people thinking it's a hookup app. You can filter out people that do not have bios.
Oh,
that didn't write anything in their bio.
Interesting.
And I was like, see, that's already such a low effort that makes you go, that person at least is putting more effort than the majority of things.
Oh, wait,
I love that.
No, I heard a really weird fact about Tinder the other day, and it was kind of gave me a bit of the gross feels. We were talking to the lovely PR chicks, right? And they were talking about the fact that in the last year and a half,
divorced men,
that Tinder has had a resurgence, right? Because at one point it kind of like really dropped in the rankings of things. It became like more of like a hookup app.
Yeah.
And
it's owned by Match.com now.
Yeah, it's had a resurgence. You even wonder why it's had a resurgence?
They have a new CEO, and it's owned by Match.com. No?
Nothing to do with that. It's to do with the fact that a lot of married men who are now divorced, Tinder was the only dating app that they were recognized. And so they jumped back on it.
That does make sense.
And so it was just this resurgence of all of these married men or women who have gotten divorced and now jumping back on it because it's the only dating kind of...
And I'm sure it has to do with CEO and rebranding as well, but it was funny that...
but it is the most popular app. Like, if you live in smaller towns, you will have more people on Tinder than other apps. Period. It's always been that way because it was the first. It was the first, the most popular.
They are a stronghold, on the dating app.
They are the number one.
They're there for a reason.
But what's interesting, I know a girl that's a wedding planner, and she's like, when everyone says hookup app, relationship app, she goes, I do weddings. Majority of weddings are online people. No trend in the apps. It's Hinge, it's Tinder, it's Bumble, it's First Rounds on Me. But she's like, it's all of them. It's apps you've never even fucking heard of.
Yeah.
Plenty of Fish is this one, Farmers is this one, J-Date this one. Like,
There's
she's like,
so many.
She goes, it's all online. So she's like, don't scoff at any of them. And I don't know if you ever heard of Millionaire Matchmaker.
Hell yeah.
She met her current guy on Tinder.
Wow.
In LA. And she said, I looked up what's the most used app, Tinder. She's also in that older demographic, right? And she was like, I got on Tinder. Why not? It's the most known one. And she met a husband,
I mean, in all honesty, I wouldn't be surprised, and like I'm no dating scientist, but I wouldn't be surprised, like as we continue to grow, like within the last 5 years and perhaps like the next 5 to 10 years, that a majority of couples will have met through a dating app of some sort.
Well,
also,
it's already 30%.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
it like kind of has replaced
so
meeting
you're
through
the
work.
dating scientist.
I gotta look this shit up all the time.
I feel intimidated
it was like
because usually
30% was work,
so
and now
many bucks.
and now I believe it's 30% dating app, and the work percent went down, but also work from home is now a thing after 2020. So I'll be real interested to see what it is in 5 years.
Really
I think it's only going to get higher.
I feel really intimidated because this is like the first podcast I've done where the guest knows so much more about dating
You have a
than
wealth
me.
of information. You can just feel
Like
when you're
some
speaking
people
about
usually have like their niche and expertise, but you know literally everything about dating. And I'm like, you're just schooling me.
But I read every embarrassing fucking book there is. How to Not Die Alone, Never Sleep Alone, fucking Why Men Love Bitches.
So
I read it all.
How are you doing on time?
I've heard good things.
Look right there.
How we doing?
I've got a camera right here. What are you talking
The timer
There's
right
no
there.
Timer. What time are you talking
Oscar, what's the timer say?
about? The fuck?
Is there a timer?
What am I looking for?
Well, I was a little late, so we definitely
58
started
minutes.
after 5:15.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, no, we're
Okay,
good.
we're
We're really good.
What was it? I was like, timer? What timer? What are some common dating app like etiquette do's and don'ts that you would give advice to people?
Oh, number one is have all your pictures be current pictures of yourself. Yeah. And like it's the number one thing men do, especially from my lens. I'm like, you are 5 different people in these fucking photos. And men never take pictures of themselves, right? So also I'm not anti like group photo. I know it also says don't do group photo. It's like you just need to have enough that I know which one you are because we like to see that you have friends, right? So there's an interesting balance. But like here would be my formula for anyone on a dating app is first picture is your face and smiling. Men and women, fucking smile, okay? I know we all think we look sexier, right? Not smiling. We think our eyes look bigger, whatever. Smile. It's friendlier. It's more approachable. Also, color is nice to have.
Yeah.
Okay? So first picture, you smile and face. Here's my face. Second picture is a body shot. And that doesn't mean you have to be in a fucking bikini. Just, here's my body. This is what I look like. There you go. I'm tall. I have a picture of me and my tiny ass friend to be like, I'm tall, okay? Because men don't read your bio or your details, okay? And I don't care if you're shorter than me, but I'm like, yo, I'm tall. And men that like my profile like that picture the most because they love tall bitches, okay? Third would be like something they could message you about. an activity,
Prompt,
something,
yeah.
I'm in a different place, whatever, right? But for the most part, be smiling, activity, different location. But those are like, if you only had 3 pictures, do those 3. Other etiquettes I want to say. I don't think there's any etiquette on just unmatching people, and that might sound mean.
Unmatching?
Yes. Like, say you have that thing, you match with someone, you don't really want to go out with them, they message you. If you want to unmatch them, fine. But there's also now many apps have the hidden feature. Just hide it. Just hide it, whatever. But some people will be like, that's so mean if you unmatch. I'm like, get over it.
I think it's actually better that you unmatch rather than just keep somebody in your inbox, like kind of like maybe feeding them a little bit here and there,
Keep a clean
or
inbox.
not replying at all. I think it's so much better to just be like, actually, even if you don't say it out loud, it's going to be like unmatch. You get the message being like, all right, sweet, on to the next.
Okay. And then for prompts that you answer, I would show the sex that you're interested in dating, show a couple of them your profile and get their feedback. Because both genders will write shit that I'm like, women will write shit about Bravo, and I'm like, men don't watch Bravo, okay? Same thing with men will be like, do you watch SportsCenter? It's like, we fucking really don't, okay? We really don't. So running that by someone also will weed out when you have answers that are like, yo, I see this on every girl's profile, right? And there's nothing wrong with being basic. We're all basic at the end of the day, but it's like, don't just say I love pizza. Say, controversial opinion, this is the best pizza place in LA. Boom, we have a conversation started, right? Last one I'd say is you should only be on the app if you are going to meet somebody within a week. If you are booked up for 2 weeks, why the fuck are you on the app? Momentum is everything.
Honestly, that's fantastic.
So
advice.
you should only exchange a handful of messages. Get to meeting as quick as you can. I know some people are not comfortable with that quick, but if you're not, I say then do a phone call or send voice memos, something that help you feel more comfortable. But like, and I've been that person because you're on the app and then you have 2 weeks, you're suddenly back up. But like, if you join the app and you're like, I got a wedding this weekend, I got this, blah, blah, what are you doing? And I think the best day to go out is like a Wednesday, Thursday, because if it goes well, hey, I want to see you again this weekend.
Yeah.
Momentum is everything. So
so
you gotta
fucking
like,
smart.
if you really want to date, you have to actually like make openings in your schedule and not book yourself too tight. And I'm guilty of that. That's
Erica's
something I
our
fucked up.
best guest of all time.
Honestly, you're making this
I
transition
won.
so fucking easy
I
for
won.
me. Me stepping into these shoes, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
We've had some
smart.
really great guests. This
Except
is
what's
our
funny is there'll be people
50th show.
listening going, but this bitch is still single. You know what?
No.
You know what?
You have a higher
I'm doing my
standard.
best.
You want someone
I am. I'm
elevated.
trying.
I feel like you have a lot of information as well, and perhaps that's like sometimes intimidating to some men with the wealth of information that you know about dating.
Well, it's more, I don't like offer it, but I met someone through, you guys know Cassidy, Chaotic Singles
Yeah.
Party, right? I met someone through there, but then he was like, even before we met, texting, would be like asking my opinion and questions about dating stuff, and I'm like, bro, I'm not here to help you date. Like,
your fucking
you're
coach.
supposed to be, like, there's supposed to be romance here. I don't want to think about how you're going to another singles party. Like, I don't need to know that. Like,
Also, didn't you date my friend
weird.
from
did I?
the live podcast?
I did go on a couple dates with him.
Yeah,
Very nice
he was
guy.
very fond of you. Like
He
right
was,
after the podcast,
He was a great guy.
he was
I
like,
really felt
he's
bad.
like,
I was
dude,
not
do you
into
know
it.
Erica? I was like, I mean, I just met her today. He's like, I really like her. I was like, oh, I mean,
We called him King of Queens. That was his nickname on the pod.
Oh, stop
Yeah.
it.
I never said a bad word. He's so sweet.
he's
so nice.
really nice, and he's super tall, but he's such a sweet guy.
Tall guy, very attractive. Like, I very much was like, I would set you up with so many of my friends just because we weren't a match. But I really wish, I wish we were. He was really, really great.
Yeah.
And he was someone I was like, oh, I immediately knew he was into me because I'm like, you saw me on stage like doing my thing, and you were still like, oh,
Yeah.
that girl's cool. She got personality.
Even more attracted
As soon as
to
I
you.
got
Yeah,
off the stage,
I was like, you really got to see who I was actually. You
yeah,
know?
he ran right up to me. And
Wait,
was
I have to,
like,
as a fellow tall lady, right? How tall are you?
I am 5'11". I'm just under 6 feet.
Me too.
Yeah.
We're right around the same height. I personally never had an issue with it. I actually loved dating shorter people. I thought it was hilarious, and I loved wearing massive high heels. I still do it to him. Like I wear fucking giant high heels, and I'm like so much taller than him. Did you ever have any kind of like insecurities about it, or has it always been something that where you're just
No.
like fuck it?
I mean, the last dude I cried over was shorter than me, so clearly I'm over it enough. I grew up in a short town. I grew up with a lot of Italians, and like I hate when people go, "You're tall," but I mean, your prom date was taller than you, right? I'm like, well, he fucking wasn't, so thanks. You know, he actually had a growth spurt after. But the point is, I feel like I got over it so young because it was like, okay, there's 4 boys in your class that are taller than you, and then there's everybody else, and do you like, are you gonna have that thing? And it all is, and I think this is true for everything. It's like people like how other people make them feel. So if you're shorter than me and you make me feel like I'm some big fucking giant, I'm like, get out of my face, dude, right? But the truth is, I think short men are actually more appreciative of tall women and are less insecure dating a tall woman because they're used to not being the tallest. Yeah. So like one more person's taller than them, they're like, okay.
All right, that is such a good way of explaining it because I feel like all of the like shorter men I dated were like, yes, wear
loved
heels.
you.
Even though you're like, yeah, whatever you want, you're like, please don't wear that.
I think it's a security on both people's. I think being secure is the most attractive thing for either sex.
Right.
And I think if you're a shorter guy with a taller woman, you're pretty secure, and then the shorter woman with the taller woman with a shorter guy, you're pretty secure. Yeah. And I think that's good as long as you're just secure.
Also, I love to see tallies and shorties together. That's always really enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, with regardless of how tall you are, I'm like, the height thing is such a thing you cannot control by any means. That women that are like, I need a guy who's, I'm like, shut up.
When women say it's a prerequisite, they're like, I will not. I would rather die than date someone who's shorter than 6'2". I'm like, the fuck are your priorities?
Wait, am I allowed to be dirty on the spot?
Yeah, of course.
For sure.
Oh, okay. Shorter dudes are better in bed, hands down.
Yeah, so much better.
Absolutely, hands down. Hands down.
I guess
like,
medium height guys are medium in bed.
6'5", 6'6" is usually not great. Unless they were a nerd that never got girls, or I once had sex with a guy who's 6'8", was on the basketball team, rode the bench. You know how bad you got to be 6'8" and ride the bench? All right? That dude was great, but he never had, like, the glory of sports, you know? So that's the only loophole to the tall man, I'll say. But in general, dudes that were, like, around my size shorter were significantly better.
The effort, mate. The effort that they put in. It was crazy.
They care.
Absolutely crazy.
Okay, so we're talking about intentional dating, being single.
Okay.
How do you, at what stage do you feel comfortable telling somebody about your diagnosis with herpes?
Oh yeah, having herpes. You know, I used to be so nervous, and I feel like this is everyone that gets diagnosed. You're so nervous going on your first couple dates because all you think is, how am I going to tell this person that I have herpes, right? Or when? And that's why I tell people that get it, I'm like, listen, unless your mental health really is like so low where you need like to talk to a therapist and get some professional help, go on dates, because there was nothing better than going on dates and me realizing, oh, I just didn't like that guy. And I had this worry about telling him herpes, and we're nowhere near there. That was 0 to 100, right? I think what's hard is when you get herpes, you feel like the hookup culture gets taken away from you, which it doesn't. But that's the part I think that feels hard. And I was 25, so it was like, oh shit, now there's this obstacle where, like I said earlier, the power of women can fuck whenever they want suddenly felt like it got taken away from me. It's like, you can, but ethically you need to tell people you have herpes, and you're essentially handing people a reason to reject you.
Yeah.
So that's also very scary on that level. But in general, it's like, I really don't think about it that much in the forefront of my mind. And even my friends that like weren't comedians or weren't public about it that have herpes, same thing. They'd always look at me and say, oh, you're just so new into having this. And all it's going to take is like, you find people that really don't care and are cool about it.
Isn't it more common than people think?
It's so common.
Yeah,
it's
I
actually
feel like it's very common.
So it's like, I'll give you a quick rundown of like 3 big myths about herpes. Number 1 myth I'd say is, if you sleep with someone that has herpes, that means you automatically get herpes. Absolutely not the case unless there's an active outbreak happening. Number 2, herpes is not included in routine STD tests or STI tests, excuse me. So if you go to get an STI test and blood is not drawn, you are absolutely not being tested for herpes. If you get an HIV test in addition to your STI test, usually it is included, but often doctors do not tell you because HSV1 is also what cold sores are.
I have that.
Right? Yeah. So usually when people read it, they're like, oh, you have cold sores. Because med school herpes day is like 5 fucking minutes. And they say, this is oral herpes, this is, genital herpes. And the truth is, you can get both in either place. So I have type 1 genitally. So I technically have cold sores on my vagina, right? So that's the 3rd myth I tell people is herpes is cold sores. And everyone's like, no, it's different. And I say, no, it's not. It's the same thing.
Read a fucking book.
Right? So a lot of times, like, people not being okay with it is more just the education of it. And that's more the thing that shocks me when I tell people is like, I've only had a few people react poorly, but it was all their reaction. I was like, oh, buddy, you have so much wrong information here. Like I had a man freak out on me, like, cause we made out and I didn't tell him. And then I told him later. And I was like, you don't have it. Like, I was like, I don't. But it was so far out of the league. I was like,
Which probably turned you off on the stupidity.
Yeah, I just was like, and he worked at a health insurance company. I was like, I know you know some doctors, man, or something. Like, fucking ask around at the company you work with. Like, you probably have the stats of how many people are on Valtrex that are on your fucking insurance or whatever. But yeah, it is really, really common. I forget, sorry, what the original question was. I'm like, did I steer away from it?
No, you didn't.
You basically
just like at what stage would you tell someone?
It's just when you decide that you would like to be physical with them on like super physical level.
Has there ever been a situation where it was going so well, where you were like, I really, this is going so well, and then you told them that and it kind of ruined it?
Yeah, in the sense that we didn't continue to date, but it wasn't immediate because I think for a lot of people, especially when I was young, I was the very first person they ever met that was like, I have herpes. So you also add in a dating sense. And I have had a handful of men that rejected me, then years later reach out to me and say, hey, not even years later, honestly, like one was like months later. They were like, hey, I just went out with another girl who turns out she has herpes and just told me. And they were like, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how common it is. So there's something to being like, sometimes you're just the first person that they've ever met in real life that's like, I have herpes. And it's a bit of a mindfuck because most people assume like someone who appears to be so promiscuous or maybe even dresses a certain way and stuff that is not true. They think like, oh, I'll know who has herpes and who doesn't. And it's like...
Well,
the misconceptions around it, and also just like the heavy stigma around any kind of STD or STI is shoved down our throats when we're younger. It's
to
horrific.
Not get it.
It's horrific to get this. This is why you have to have safe sex, X, Y, and Z. But it doesn't mean that you've contracted it by not having safe sex. Like you said, there's so many misconceptions surrounding it. But I think honestly, it's so fantastic because you could have not spoken about it publicly, right?
Yeah.
You could have decided to keep that within yourself and then told the appropriate people as the times go by. So I think the fact that you were the type of people who, by having these conversations, makes it so much less scary and affronting for people, right?
Yeah, and it's sorry, I just lost my train of thought. It's just so interesting how like different countries as well
really
react with herpes. Like so many places are just like, people are openly like, oh yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable today. My herpes is having a little flare up. Like it's so casual. Like, so sometimes when people are like, I have herpes, what should I do? I'm like, honestly, if you find Europeans, date them. They don't fucking care. They don't care.
And I feel like once you get older, it has to be a lot easier anyway, because if you're trying to be with one person, like if one of us had it, I'd be like, I don't really care because I'm only gonna be with you. So like, well sure.
You do. You've got it. Instead of here, you've got it up here.
Yeah. So when I think I was 26, I went for a STI test and blood test, and I went to urgent care, and they called me like in the middle of work, and they said, I just want to let you know, like you have herpes. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, shit. So
again,
like my whole
reaction,
my whole day was just
I absolutely
like
cried when
I looked up all these articles, and I was like, oh, Derek Jeter has herpes. Okay, I'm with Derek Jeter. This is great. And then
immediately I googled celebrities that have herpes, bro.
And then,
I immediately did.
You really?
And that's why Derek Jeter sends his gift basket to everybody.
Yeah,
because he doesn't want to use condoms. No. Also, the condoms don't really protect you from it that much, by the way. Heads up.
But then I went to the urologist, and I was like, yeah, like, can you help me with this? And he did like an actual thorough test. And he was like, yeah, you have cold sores. I don't know why. Yeah. The urgent care told you that.
The HB, like,
because if it just shows up in the blood tests.
Yeah, but the way they approached me, I was just like, why would you do that?
The education on it literally varies even from doctors, because I've had friends that have doctors that told them, well, you don't really have to tell people about this. And they're like, isn't that unethical? And doctors are like, no, because you're actually less likely to get it from someone who knows they have it, which that is true. But there's almost this weird thing where sometimes doctors are like, I mean, I just wouldn't tell anyone. Like, the risk is so low. That's like, live your life. And or at the same time, even men I've been with that then are like, you know, they're like, hey, I hope you're not offended, but I went and got a herpes test. I'm like, no, I'm not offended at all. But they said they had to push to get the test. The doctor was like, like, wouldn't you rather not know?
Yeah.
Because now it's like an obstacle you have to navigate in like the sexual world. But I 100% agree. Like, dating as I've been older really has not been an issue with it, because I'm also sitting there being like, the relationship I get in next, I would like it to be a serious relationship with the idea that it's going towards like the rest of my life, right? So, but at 25, it's like, we're in fun land and we're invincible. And,
and I think, like you said, people, it's like COVID, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm in the city, I'm gonna sleep with all these people, and then I'm gonna spread it throughout the city. Yeah. And it's just like, no, it's not like that at all.
That's not how it fucking works.
No, it's not. Yeah, but it's like everybody has it, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, I keep my spiel so kind of short and sweet, because I just remind myself, like, I don't know what people know about it. And I've found, I'm a numbers person, but I've found people don't really like to hear numbers on it. Like the way condoms, what's the percent condoms you can get pregnant? Like 2%, 1%, right? So I remember one time I was like, well, listen, I'm on meds, and if we use a condom, the percent chance of you getting herpes for men is 1%. Also, unfortunately, women, we have a higher chance of having it because it's a skin thing, and we
Goddamn
have more
vaginas.
surface area. Yeah, unfortunate. I've gotten in trouble. People are like, that percent's not true. I'm like, well, it's true for men, which is who I date. So I'll never forget being like, so the percent chance you have of getting herpes is the same percent chance I have of getting pregnant. So even Steven. And all they heard was, there is a chance. You know, like that's all people hear in their mind. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe there's a chance we can't have sex. I'm like, bro, we're taking pregnancy risk every day.
I was going to say,
we're taking the pregnancy risk every time.
I've never thought about that correlation with each other, but it's so fucking
you know?
true.
But it's so funny that I'm like, yeah, man, me on the pill, still a percent chance. Still a percent
Still can
chance.
happen. Yeah.
Condom, still a
Pill,
chance.
condom, still can do it.
Right.
That's awesome.
But thank you so much for talking about it and being open
Oh,
with it.
yeah,
Because I think
of
it just,
course.
like I said, it stigmatizes it, allows people to have open and honest conversations about it.
And it weeds out the weak.
It does. Well, it weeds out the people who are uninvolved. Like,
Yeah.
come off it. Like, just
Yeah.
this is a part of life. Like you said, more people than we care to admit are dealing
Yeah.
with STDs, SDIs, and it's just a normal place of life.
I think it's everything. Not even like STDs or STIs. It's just like depression, anxiety. Like people deal with shit, and if you just talk about it, it's not that bad.
I
Like you just need more
agree.
people to talk to about it.
That's it.
Yeah, I more had the lens like I would rather tell everyone than like people find out and it's like a whisper thing. And part of that had to do with comedy and being in entertainment, where I
Yeah.
was like, entertainment in America loves to build people up and then tear them the fuck down.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, let's imagine my career goes the way I want it to go. I'm like, okay, there's men I've dated that I've told I had herpes, so people know. There are people in the world that know, and all it takes is one person talking to one fucking tabloid, and all of a sudden it's like, comedian Erica Spera has
Oh my
herpes.
God.
And now I'm like,
Is that your
but
man
like
voice?
you beat him to it.
It's like my old 1920s newscaster.
That was good.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
Oh my God.
All right. So
She's a
wrap-
whore.
She's a whore.
She's a
I'm
real
not going to be able to stop
whippersnapper.
speaking like that all night now. Thank you. All right. So I think to wrap this up, we're going to do a couple of rapid fire questions, right?
I love it.
Comedy club or outdoor venue?
What's the outdoor venue for?
I don't
Sorry.
know. Like it's a comedy. Like you're doing comedy.
Oh, I mean comedy club
Comedy
for
club,
sure. If it's
100%.
comedy, yeah.
Favorite New York date night spot?
Date night
Favorite
spot.
New York date night spot? Yeah.
Oh, I fucking love an ice cream date, man. Yeah, I'd go for Van Leeuwen near the West Side, walk along the water.
Delicious.
I saw Big
Beautiful.
Ice Cream's not there anymore in the West
not?
Village. No.
Oh, I think it's still around. They're
Favorite,
still gay.
favorite way to unwind after a stand-up show?
Oh, taking an edible, watching TV show. Yeah. That's me.
Favorite stand-up comedian, obviously besides yourself.
Oh, Brian
that's
Regan is my kind of favorite of all time.
Really? I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
look
his
into
early
him.
specials are amazing. I'm like, close second is probably. I actually want to say Daniel Tosh because I feel like nobody says him, and
Really?
he's so fucking good.
He is pretty fucking funny. I'm
So
not gonna
fucking
lie.
good.
What's the last thing that made you burst into laughter?
Oh my god, I picked up one of those Colleen Hoover books that I have actively shit on, but I've never read one. And the back was literally like, sometimes the people you love the most hurt you the most. And I was like, this book is a fucking joke. And I started reading it, and I was with my friend on the beach, and I started reading her parts from it, and I've never laughed that hard in a long time. It's a terrible book.
What's your favorite thing to do when you're not podcasting or performing?
Eating for sure.
Favorite food? All time? I know it's hard.
Veal piccata is pretty hard to beat. That's one of my favorites. But it's like, you
You can
can't
do
eat
this
it all
while
the
you
time.
eat
Yeah.
What's one thing on your bucket list you're determined to check off?
My first thought was like, get married. That'd be pretty fucking cool. If I got married one day, that'd be really nice, or like had a baby. But like in terms of like things that have nothing to do with love,
Greatest answer of all
I'm
time.
like, that's the honest truth. I'm like, I could go to fucking Europe whenever I want. I got a credit card, but like, you know, I got global entry. Fucking stop me. But it's like, that's the honest truth.
I know, it's incredible.
I feel like I'm a traveler. My latest is I really want to do a trip to Japan.
I've been wanting to go to
I've been-
Japan for
Yeah.
such a long time.
See,
Highly
but now
recommend.
living in LA, I'm like, hey, now that you're here, it's like 5 hours shorter to get to. So
It's so much closer.
yeah. But you know, I'll take getting married over to Japan.
I fucking love that.
Finding someone to be in love with, that'd be nice.
It's so good. All right, and to end, what is one quote that you live by? One statement, one quote.
Oh, this is so contradictory to what I just said. This might feel hypocritical, but I believe it's a Lady Gaga quote. It's, if you ever are either choosing to follow a man or follow your dreams, just know that your dreams are never going to wake up in the morning and tell you it doesn't love you anymore. And that is very contradicting to what I just said. And, you know, maybe that was more what I followed in my 20s. Now that I'm older, I'm like, you know, sometimes you couldn't move across the country for love. You know what I mean? Like, I get it a little more. Actually, even more so. This is even more so. A quote I love. I don't know who said it. Lead, follow, or get out of the way.
Oh, I like
That is very much how I live my life.
I really like that.
Yeah.
I feel like you'd really like that too.
Yeah, that's nice.
Right? It's either like, hey, you're not on board with what I'm doing. Fucking
Or
get out of the way.
Yeah, or follow me and get
Go
the
over
fuck out
there.
of the way.
Or do your own fucking thing.
Go
and
over
leave.
there.
Well, I have to say, this being our first new episode of First Rounds on Me, you've been not only the perfect guest to help us transition,
Oh, thank you.
but literally you've put me on the hot seat and humbled me. So thank you.
And made us absolutely piss
Men,
ourselves
I
laughing
just have
the
to
entire
say-
I like the
thing.
relationship dynamic. Honestly,
Oh,
I feel like
she's
male-female perspective is so
way
fun.
smarter
fun.
and more powerful than me.
So fun.
But I have to
That's
say,
not
like,
true.
men out there, I feel bad because like women are way ahead of us now in every sense. So I guess we just have to take it. But
man.
honestly, we
Yeah, this
adore
is-
having you on.
Oh, thank you.
We'd
This
love
is
to
so
come to
fun.
one of your shows if they're here. And yeah,
Oh,
we'll,
yeah.
we'll
I'd
plug
love
you.
to have
You
you
know,
guys.
people.
Also,
are-
just let the people know where they can find you and what you're doing.
I'm at Sperica on pretty much all platforms, which is SPERICAA.